And we are live. Welcome to Goaldigger on LinkedIn Live. I'm Cate Luzio, founder and CEO of Luminary. And it's Friday. It is Friday. New York, where I am based, is open for business, and it feels so good. Depends on where you're zooming in from or StreamYarding in from or LinkedIning in from. Hopefully you are all safe and healthy and that things are turning a curve right now. And it's great. And right now I am actually so excited to have, I would consider now like a long-term friend because it's been more than 2 years, right?
That's right.
Luminary member, Luminary board member, new board member, and just all around badass female founder, I never say female, woman founder, woman baller, woman everything, trailblazer, speaker. Like, I can't even say enough about Allison Davis. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Cate. I'm so happy to be here with you.
So we got connected more than 2 years ago. You were, I would say, pretty much an OG at Luminary.
I think so. I joined before you officially opened the doors because my dear friend Emily brought me to an open house and I had never seen a space like it, but I had also never felt a vibe like it before. I just knew I had found my table, the come sit at my table. And I joined a couple days later. Couldn't say no.
But you were, and we're going to get into your journey. You were a little skeptical at first. Like, what is this place? Is it like other places? Is this, what's this all?
Yeah, not all co-working spaces are created equal. I had been a member of another co-working space for 2 to 3 years at that point, and it wasn't my vibe. It wasn't my table. Yeah. I think really the biggest holdup was whether or not I was going to commute in from Brooklyn enough to use it.
Hey, I don't even go to Brooklyn, so I know.
It was exactly. I mean, let's get real. That was the question. It wasn't you with the space or the people. No, but I'm so glad I did it, and it was well worth the commute.
Okay, so now let's get into your journey. So you came to Luminary, we got connected, we fell in love.
Yep.
And you have such a unique journey in what you did prior, where you are today. And, one of the things that we talk so much about is community, finding your community, being a part of your community and multiple communities, and actually having impact. So we're going to talk a little bit about finding your voice, how you found your voice, but now also how you're helping companies, particularly small businesses, find their voice as it relates to sort of sales and execution, which as one salesperson to another, we know that's not easy. So
exactly.
Let's back up because it's not like you're a born and bred New Yorker. You had a very sort of path to where you are today.
Yeah. And I love talking about it because it's my heart. I went to college in Vermont and I ended up staying there for the first 9 years of my career, working for a fantastic Vermont-based media company. And that's where I learned how to sell. And I learned how to do that by tooling around Vermont in my car, cold calling on mom and pop shops or ski mountains or whatever it was, walking in and saying, hey, I know we're the little guy, the underdog, but here's why I think you should listen to me. And after 9 years of doing that and helping to build that business, I came to New York. And, I did the thing. I worked my way up. So from mom and pop shops in Vermont to selling on behalf of global platforms like National Geographic, to Fortune 500 companies like Google and Goldman Sachs, 6- and 7-figure deals. It was exhilarating, for a little gal from Vermont to come and you've been in those rooms. You've been on all sides of those rooms. It is exhilarating. But when you said impact earlier, I was not having the impact I wanted to have on the world, even when the companies I was working for and working with were working really hard to have impact. Right. What I found was in Vermont, I was part of every part of that process with my clients. I would meet them and then we'd go over the finish line together. And as I grew in my career, my piece of that sales process got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I just felt like a cog in a wheel, even though I worked with fantastic people doing fantastic things in the world, and I wasn't having the impact. And so now, it's kind of a battle to get here and to find the community I, wanted to be in and wanted to serve. But now I get to work with small business owners from start to finish, and help them create sales processes where they have that same experience with their clients as well.
But it's so different.
Yeah.
So you're working with companies who have, for the most part, massive, big budgets, right? Yeah. They are, of course, as we know, all companies do look at their budget and make sure they're spending their dollars for impact and ROI. You make this huge change to work with then small business. And actually, even since I've known you, your focus, your business, you in particular have evolved and adapted to actually working with even smaller businesses. So you can, why go from that? I mean, outside of I want to create more impact, but small businesses don't always have the best budget, right? You know this.
Yeah. Here's the through line. I help the majority of my clients sell to the type of companies I was selling to, because I'm uniquely positioned to do that. So for instance, one of my clients is a diversity, equity, inclusion strategist. And of course, in the last 2 years, demand because it even started right before May 2020, it was ramping up. The demand is there, but big companies don't know how to buy it. And my clients who have everything to give in this regard don't know yet how to sell it. That makes a really messy situation. So for me to take what I know about being a small business owner from having sold to small business owners, but understand what it's like to be in the room with those big brands that can get in your head, right? I shouldn't be here. I don't belong here. What am I doing here? I don't deserve this. And to be able to navigate that room and then navigate a proposal process that ends up with them winning the business and then having the impact they really want to have in the world, that's how it all comes together.
And so as you think about the company now and where you have evolved to, your voice, not that it's changed, but it's also evolved as an individual, as a woman leader, representing multiple communities. Can you talk about your voice and how that's changed? Again, from that girl in Vermont, right? Yeah. And taking away that sales point, but how you've evolved to find your voice in those rooms to be able to commanding that they listen to you now.
Oh, geez. It's an interesting question, and it's an ever evolving question. In some ways, I feel like I'm at the beginning of that journey. You were a salesperson, right? So my mandate for many, many years was go find the money and bring it home. Yeah. That was it. There was some care and, about how we did that, but I sold media, print media, right? I was in an industry that was managing its decline. There was a lot of just go get it. And now my clients don't want to do that. Everybody needs money. It makes the world go round. We got to pay our bills. Our clients want impact.
Right.
So I've gotten to find that voice that was always inside of me that wanted to work for those platforms and brands that were doing good things in the world, right? I've gotten to find that voice to say, here's what's important. Let me empower you to use your voice. And so I can take all the best things about being a salesperson who was a hunter and bring that and connect it with the heart and the impact that I want to make and that my clients want to make, and come to a really nice balance of the two.
And what are some of the kind of clients that you're working with over the last couple of years? Because that's evolved as well.
Definitely. Yeah. So I'm working with service providers, many of whom are solopreneurs or just have one or two other hands in the mix when it comes to selling. And they're mostly selling into the HR function. So leadership development trainers, I said diversity, equity, inclusion, change management strategists, and other kinds of cool services too that are ever evolving, like cybersecurity services, branding, creative, agencies that are selling into these companies. If you have a dream to work with a Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 company, you need support to do that if you've not done that before.
Yeah. I mean, you know this from our journey, right? We work now with dozens of Fortune, even 100 and Fortune 500 companies. And so much of that comes from my background, right?
Yeah.
Working in those companies, working in those big companies, but not everybody has that experience, that network, those connections.
Yep.
As you think about small businesses and so much of, and I teach my business plan boot camp. I have my own company now that's consulting with founders on how they start their business. So much of what's forgotten about is that sales piece, right?
Yeah.
It's like, great, I have a great business. I'm an awesome founder. I know my product's great. And then there's this big gap in selling.
Yes.
And so can you talk a little
Yeah.
about, because this is something that you teach at Luminary. This is something that's part of your coursework. This is paramount to the success of any business.
Yeah. Two things, two areas. I mean, we all have tune-ups and tweaks that we can make no matter how long we've been doing this. But if I'm talking about small business owners, service providers, there are two areas that are the most painful. The first is only relying on referral and word of mouth to get your business. Yeah. It is great. That's where we're going. That's what I want to have happen for my clients. It's great unless it's not enough. And when you're building, it's often not enough. So if you don't know how to go out and find a piece of business, nurture a piece of business, you got a problem. Because why? We know we're going to get in the weeds a little bit, because then you can't forecast revenue. You have no control over it. And when you can't forecast revenue, you can't make decisions about where to invest or where to spend time. You're constantly reacting and you're getting distracted by everything. So the first thing I want to do is to help folks understand how to go out and feel more in command and in control of being able to find work and business and clients. The second area, and I was a victim of this myself, some of the biggest brands I worked for were a victim to this as well, is that we get way too excited and we celebrate when someone asks us to send a proposal.
Oh my God, I love that you talk about this. Yes, you talk about it.
I can't, like, that is not a win. That is when the work begins, right? So what I see, the second biggest mistake, aside from not really understanding how to go find clients, really, is somebody says, okay, well, this all sounds great. Please send me a proposal. And we say, absolutely, I'm going to turn that right around in 48 hours. And then you go spend 48 hours pouring your heart and soul into a proposal. But what I find is that it's way too soon. You don't have the most critical information needed in order to make that proposal probable.
So what are some tips for you that you give, around not having that? And then there's a bunch of questions I'm going to get into as well, because people are loving this, right?
Yeah. Two things. I'm going to give you an acronym. Everybody loves an acronym. I'm going to give you tabs. You got to keep tabs. Someone says to you, that sounds great, Allison, send me a proposal. What I want you to do is say, great. They think they're getting off the call. And you say, great. Can I have just 5 or 10 more minutes so that I can make sure my proposal is a home run for you? And then I want you to keep tabs. You have to understand the timeline. Where's the urgency for them? If you haven't uncovered that yet, where's the urgency? What is the timeline? Right? The authority. Who else is in on this decision? Your CEO, your CFO. But one area people forget to ask, who are the influencers? If you're bringing diversity, equity, inclusion work into a corporation, not just the decision makers have to get buy-in, but the loudest people in the room, the influencers, need buy-in on you and the process, right? So that's authority. B, budget. Do not write a proposal if you do not know what they can afford or what they will spend. It is a waste of your time. And the S is strategy. What is their strategy to bring that proposal over the finish line internally? The biggest switch here is that we often are running a relay race, right? We're passing a baton. It's a proposal, it's information, it's back and forth and back and forth. Scratch it. We need to run a 3-legged race from here on out. You are tethered together, and this is your proposal, and you're bringing it over the finish line together.
It's a marriage. It's a relationship.
Yeah, it truly is. And you have to show up for that, and you have to ask the hard questions. Small business owners, Cate, who don't have the experience that we have, understandably, get real nervous around asking for those timelines and deadlines, and asking someone who might be holding $100,000 for them to adhere to a schedule. That can be intimidating, right? Pushing for budget when they say, oh no, we're such and such company. Of course we have the money. Do your worst. That's not an answer. You need a budget. Yeah.
When I think one of the biggest, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. That timeline authority budget strategy. I think one of the biggest challenges, especially for small business owners, and listen, I'm a small business, right? I get it.
Exactly.
It's budget, right? It's pushing someone on that budget and saying, I don't want to give you a proposal that you're going to go, oh my God, or, oh, this is like way underpriced, right? And so pushing on that budget piece makes us very uncomfortable, right? That's a sign that, you've got to get comfortable with that, because not every conversation is going to be good. Do you have when you've got that sort of pushback around, oh, just give us your best shot?
Yes.
Anything in the budget one?
Yeah. Last week, I had a client that was going through this. They were speaking with arguably one of the biggest sportswear brands in the world. And the answer they got was, well, we're so-and-so, of course we have money.
Yeah.
So the coaching around that is to say something, whatever's true for you, and along the lines of, oh, that's great to hear. That gives us a lot of creativity to make sure we're going to get the job done for you. But I just need like a little bit more to go on so that it saves you time later. I don't want you rooting around in proposals that won't work for you. So the truth is, I can come in and do a one-day training with my team for $20,000. Or if you want to look at a multi-month cohort with one-on-one coaching for your people, it could be upwards of $250,000. So can you give me a range?
Yeah, give me a range.
Give me a range.
That's it, right? And that range may be a lot less or a lot more than you think about, but it actually gives you some guidelines for you to then build that proposal. Right.
And if I may, here's a big mindset piece about that. A lot of times they'll say something like, well, give me something around 50,000, 150,000, 250,000, or 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, whatever pool you're swimming in. Okay. And what that means is that you're not actually sending a proposal. Right. You're sending thought starters. And that's okay. But you mentally and emotionally need to know the difference. Do not expect a week later they're going to come back and be like, option 3. You're starting a conversation there.
Okay, one more question, and then I want to go to the questions too. Is a lot of feedback, and this happens in big sales, like you're at timeout, or I'm at JP Morgan. It happens, right? Is the ghosting or the non-responsiveness, right? Like, yeah, we love you, we want your proposal. Hopefully, you've done tabs and you've done all that. And then it's like crickets, and then you start to panic, and then you start to sweat, and then you're like firing off emails. Hey, did you get this? Hey, have you heard? What's your guidance there, particularly for small business owners?
Okay, number 1, no matter how many acronyms I give you, if I'm attached to you at the hip and go through the entire proposal process, some people are going to ghost you for a time. That's just what it is. One of the hardest shifts to make. A lot of my clients come from pretty impressive jobs in corporate, right? They are used to being proposed to. They are used to being very important, and I love them for it. And it can be a pretty rude awakening when all of a sudden you realize you're being put in a category of vendor or salesperson.
Yeah.
That's tough. So number 1, know that it's going to happen, but you can tip the scales in your favor to make it happen less. And that is by preparing well, keeping tabs, knowing the difference between thought starters and an actual proposal, where the urgency is, what their deadlines are, and all that jazz. That's number 1. Number 2, everyone always hates me for saying this. They roll their eyes, but they know it's true, which is that there is no ghosting or no hearing no that a full pipeline cannot fix.
Right.
It's like dating. You don't care if one gets away if you got a dance card full on the other side, right? Yeah. So keep working the top of your funnel. You will not, when you hear no or you get ghosted, it will hurt less if you have other things going on.
And I think the other thing is if you've tried and you feel also like you're wasting time now because you do follow up, it's like, okay, tell them thanks for the opportunity. If our paths cross again, great. But also don't waste my time, right? We're all busy.
Absolutely.
That seems to work as well, because it gives you clarity. Like if you're not, and it's never, it doesn't have to be a no forever.
No,
right?
And it often isn't. It often isn't. There's a stat out there, I'm probably going to butcher it, but Salesforce says that someone will often say no 5 times before saying yes. And that doesn't mean like on the same proposal. It can be over time. You got to keep with it. As a small business owner, time is our biggest commodity. And if you've already put in so much time and maybe you've gotten toward the finish line, but you didn't win it, the answer is not to let that go forever. It's to stay close to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I may say one other thing, which is that do not be afraid to all throughout your sales process before you send that proposal and maybe get in that potential ghosting situation. I am asking 6 ways to Sunday all the time. What might get in the way? Are there other priorities that have bubbled up? Is everybody still on board that this is a top priority? What? Constantly. Because when would I rather know if there's an objection or a hurdle, before or after I send a proposal?
Right.
Always before.
Always. And also you spend all this time and then it's like, sorry, we're not in the position to fund this. Wait, you could have told me that before.
I should have known that before.
Exactly.
I should have known that before. And so use the power of reflection there. Whenever you get an objection or you get a no, do your future self a really huge favor and sit down and say, is there a question I could have asked?
Yeah.
That maybe would have, yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is, asking those initial questions too, like your authority, like who has to buy in. If you know you're working with a company that has to have 30 people buy in, it's going to be a much longer sales cycle.
Exactly.
And that's okay. Big companies aren't as nimble for the most part. So manage your expectations. And I think that's important. As it doesn't matter if you're small. I mean, I was at JP Morgan and HSBC, and you're a big company. You have a great calling card selling into clients. You still have to manage your own expectations. I want to get to a great question because I think it's really important. From Rachel Basoko, what do you think people get wrong when it comes to sales, and any cliches that have to be thrown out the window?
Yeah. Well, I'll do the cliches first. The most cliches that are absolutely horrible have to do with how, Cate, probably you can relate, how people are trained to handle objections or combat objections. I mean, the word combat is in it, okay? It doesn't work for most of us, okay? Like, that is so uncomfortable. And what we're taught most of the time is to react in the moment. Barrel through like nothing is going to get in your way. Don't call attention to any potential problems. And then when they say an objection, act totally surprised.
Right.
And then we hear things like every no leads to a yes. Well, how disgusting is that? Right? We're not doing that. But that's literally what old school sales trainers teach. And that you have to fight an objection like 10 times in that moment. The thing is like there's elements of truth to all of it, which is what is difficult. But the truth is most of my big-hearted entrepreneurs and salespeople are not going to pick those. They're not going to pick that up.
Right.
So what we need to do is 2 things. 1, continue to ask that question early and often. What might get in the way? What might get in the way? Have you ever tried to do this before? Who was the naysayer? What did they say? What do they think? Get in there. But second, most of my clients are also thought leaders. They're out talking in the world. So if money is the biggest objection you hear, the first time anyone sees you, if you're giving a workshop or a panel, I need you to work in. Most companies are hesitant to spend money on this right now. But what we have found is you can start combating those objections upfront with education.
Yeah.
Not with these manipulative, weird, cold, old school, very masculine sales tactics.
Yeah. And I mean, you even said it, we were trading text this morning and voice notes, which I love that you use that, just around our business and supporting companies. We happened to be a feature on the CBS News, a documentary around the fact that a lot of these small businesses, especially service providers, are supplemental or complementary to existing programs, initiatives. So make that company know you're not trying to replace anyone, especially the person you're selling into.
Yeah. I would say to Rachel's question and to what you're saying, what do people get wrong? I don't know if it's necessarily wrong, but one thing we get to do better. I think sometimes we think we don't deserve or we're going to look a fool if we come in as a leader, if we come in as a thought partner with folks, because as what Luminary is doing is working in partnership with learning and development folks, with HR leaders to say, you don't have to do it all. You can let us guide some of this for you. Let us do what we do best to help you do what you do best. And I really think, especially even if you've had 30 years in corporate, you go out on your own as a consultant, it can take years to develop that type of confidence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this kind of leads to the next question. I put it up is Nancy Rhodes. Hi, Nancy. What are your strategies around getting comfortable negotiating? Also an uncomfortable thing for a lot of people, including women.
Yeah. Cate, to be honest with you, I'm actually curious to hear your tips for this. What I will say, and you can criticize what I'm going to say. The first thing is, you have to be ready to walk if it's not serving you and you're not being treated well, especially as women, especially if you are a marginalized business owner. You have to be ready to walk.
Yeah.
So know your bottom line is definitely a strategy that I employ. And my bottom line changes drastically if my dance card is full. So I always go back to negotiating is going to be a hell of a lot easier and more comfortable and empowering for you if you can walk away because you know where to go get your next meal.
Yeah. I mean, sales is a numbers game, right? It doesn't matter if you need to sell 5 clients or 5,000 clients. It is a numbers game. And to your point around the dance card, I always, in my former life as a banker, and certainly now, if number one, you've got to always be filling that pipeline, right? You always have to have prospects in there. But the other thing is you also have to have prospects in there for if you lose a client, right? How are you filling that gap? And so I don't care if it's 1% of your sales, 10%, but knowing that you've got enough to kind of talk to and that you're having those ongoing conversations. And I would say on the negotiation, listen, you just have to be out there. And it can be, if you're not used to that hasn't been your background and you haven't been in sales, you have to be comfortable with saying no. You have to be comfortable with those objections and either understanding and overcoming those, but doing that and thinking about those objections well before you get into that meeting.
Yes. And what about also the importance of the first half an hour that you're ever with a client, where I want you to be speaking only 20% of the time to uncover information. I'll give you an example. I had a client of mine who was like, okay, I'm going to try to uncover more information. And she went into a meeting and she found that she was being they were entertaining, maybe bringing her in to be the offsite facilitator for an executive meeting, or executive offsite facilitator. Mm-hmm. She did all of her digging, got the year in advance. What does the calendar look like? She knew they had more opportunities for her coming up, but they were only looking at this micro opportunity. And so at the end, she came in with her price and they said, oh, we weren't going to go above, it's like $5 or $6 grand less than that. And she said, oh, well, I'll consider a volume discount.
Right.
How about we go ahead and get me in on those other 2 that are happening over the next 6 months? And then I'm happy to do that price for all 3. And by the way, here are the benefits of working with the same executive coach as you go along.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom. Know your levers, right? If you're willing to do a volume discount, if you're willing to, upgrade me to first class, I'll take a couple grand off of.
Yeah. And also,
whatever.
Knowing your audience in any of the sales process. I mean, it's hard when you cold call, right? But if you know their name, I was talking about this yesterday, actually at a dinner. I get a lot of blind cold calls from financial advisors, and that's good on them, but they don't give me any context. They haven't done their homework on who I am. And it's the same when I get just blind reach outs on LinkedIn or email, like, hey, I want to sell you this, but you haven't done your research. You know nothing about me. Give me something, because I love a good sales pitch.
Listen, you're going to be really proud of me. This morning, I got a follow-up to a cold LinkedIn trying to sell me some course, probably because I'm a certified coach, right? But that's not what I do. So the person just saw whatever, trying to sell me something. And I can see that this person is awesome, badass, great pedigree, all of the things. And I said, you know what? Let me help this person out. So I followed up. I said, hey, I'm curious. Are you using a company that is prospecting for you on LinkedIn? Because I have a little feedback for you. And I just kindly outlined how this is not for me and that my job in the world is to actually help people like you.
I do the same.
Do this better. We can do this better. And hey, if it's working for you, tell me to take a hike. But if you haven't sold one person into your program, have a phone call with me, please. Because even if you never work with me, I really need you to stop doing this.
It's so funny because my older brother and I talked about this last night. He's like, I love a good sales pitch. He's also in sales.
Brothers in sales. Give me one though.
But like, and then I can work with you. And even if I want to give you feedback. So I love that. I love that you're not the only person that does this. I know we're coming up on time and I love this. I mean, we could talk for hours. I want to just talk quickly about you. And goes back to sort of how you are using your voice and amplifying your message, not just about the business, but just as a woman in this world. And we know this year has been really tough, but I think and it's always been tough. But how are you, or actually more importantly, what would you tell that girl from Vermont? To make sure you're standing up for yourself and others as you're using that voice?
Yeah. I would say to that girl in Vermont, I would say, you're doing great. You can feel there's something off. Understand that every single thing that you get up and do, if you do it to the best of your ability, it will snowball and it will lead you to the right place at the right time for where you're supposed to be. And everything that you learned up until then is going to be what will serve you now. Just keep going. You know, at the beginning of the pandemic, a woman I looked to all the time for business advice, Michelle Warner, her message was keep going. Unless you can't, right? We're kind to ourselves, but keep going. And so if you're in a moment where you're trying to build a business or you're trying to get out of corporate or any of these things that I've done, my advice is to keep going and understand it's all for you. And you will be able to look back and say, I see why my path wound this way.
Exactly. I love that. Just keep going. A friend of mine, Sarah LaFleur, founder of LaFleur, she says, keep swimming. Like, don't tread, keep swimming. You may only go a little bit at a time, but keep going. And it doesn't matter if you're a business owner, if you're in corporate America, if you're a teacher, it doesn't matter. It's just keep going until you can't, right?
Yes.
All right, Allison, I've been putting up in the chat where to find you. That's basically on Instagram. You can find Allison Davis on LinkedIn right here, Allison Davis.
Right here.
Where else can they find you?
You can definitely find me at my website, allison-davis.com. And there you can download a guide to having better sales conversations. I'm going to give you 5 steps to improving those conversations that will make the rest of the sales process so much easier for you.
Let's see. I just put it up there. Hold on.
Thank you.
I got to put it up. Allison.
It's got a hyphen. Yeah, that's it. Nice.
And you can also, if you're a Luminary member, we have Allison quite frequently on different courses and great sessions. And she'll be actually moderating a panel next week.
Yes. LGBTQIA+ at work, in the workplace. It is my absolute pleasure to be moderating that panel with some amazing folks from JP Morgan and from Indeed, and talk about using your voice. You know, as a queer identified person, I am so grateful to have a platform like Luminary that sees its members and then gives opportunities to use the voice. So thank you, Cate, for having me do that.
Well, we need to, I was talking to someone this morning and I said, this is not about one voice. It's not about 5 voices. This is about millions of voices. This is not a moment in time. This is a movement, and damn it, we better take advantage of it.
Yeah. And not just in June.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
Allison, I can't wait to see you next week in person. But I want to thank you. Thank you for everything that you do for our community at Luminary, for the LGBTQ+ IA community, just in general, and for all the small business owners that you're working with. And you are a true luminary in every sense of the word.
Thank you. It is my honor. Thank you very much.
Everyone, have a fantastic weekend. Hopefully you will enjoy taking off your mask for a moment. And we will see you next Friday on Goaldigger. Have a great one. Thanks, Allison.
Bye.